last question, just looking at the time. Rachel said, hi all, any ideas, suggestions for what to put my money into in this situation, or for what to put money into this situation? An older family member has retired a couple of years ago and spent all of his super renovating his fixer-upper, quote-unquote, PPOR. His super account is now completely closed. He has no investments and is living on the pension. Whoop, whoop. He will soon be getting a sizable amount of money from a family trust and he's wondering what will be the best thing to do with this money. A decent chunk will go into an emergency savings account, but then not sure what makes the most sense for the rest, as he may need to access it over the next few years. Does he keep it all in savings, low-risk ETFs, investment bonds? What should he be looking into? Keen to hear your suggestions. Feel free to send links to any podcast that might be relevant, as I'm sure Glen James or others have shared some wisdom on this somewhere. Well, we dedicated a whole podcast called Retire Right to this type of stuff. Do you have any comments for this, Sitch?
Well, older family member retired, spent all his super.
I reckon we can assume 60s.
Yeah. Enjoy the hell out of it.
Okay.
Have some fun.
Okay.
Take a good chunk of it and just have a bit of fun with it.
Okay.
Look, the keep it all in savings bit, a little bit of that was tongue in cheek, by the way.
Oh, sorry, I didn't read the room, John.
Keep it all in savings is probably not what I would do with it. Obviously, and I feel we've spoken about this a lot over the last 7 or 8 years. We've got to have those emergency buffers. We've got to have a plan to say, well, over the next 10 years, this might be happening. I might go on these holidays, those sort of things. So chunking or carving some off for that. And then once you've done all that, the emergency funds and the buffers and everything else, you're then saying, well, what am I doing with the rest? So it's the rest that is the question here, isn't it? So, look, what are you into? What floats your boat? You're probably speaking to a financial advisor, and we did an episode on this last week before. Spoke a little bit about ETFs and little bits ins and outs of where your money can go and how intricate you can get with your money. So I don't really have a direction for the remaining funds, but it's a lot of it comes back to your risk appetite as well. Yeah.
So we don't know how much there would be. He's clearly a homeowner for Centrelink. Actually, he's probably over 65, 67, given that he has living on the pension. So he can still get money into superannuation. I believe it's up to 75 years old as a non-concessional contribution.
Yeah, you just have to open a new one.
Yeah, which is easy.
Yeah.
Then you could put that into pension phase and it could grow tax-free and then draw a weekly income. A couple of considerations there for the questioner. So he's currently living off 30 grand a year from the pension. Sounds like he might be spending all that. We just need to know how much the money is, because if it is over maybe 350 or 340,000, what's the deeming rate? The asset test. It is for a single service pensioner is 314. I knew it was 3. So once he ticks over that $314,000, the pension will decrease. So I think he needs advice. I think we don't know how much the inheritance or the trust money is going to be. If he gives more than 30 grand away over 5 years, that will count as an asset. But I think there is a strong argument to make a contribution to superannuation and set up an investment strategy, maybe have 3 years worth of cash in there and then invest the rest, and then set a weekly payment into his bank account. And yeah, as you said, John, if it is a significant amount of money and he wants to throw 20 grand at a fun car or that's all good. But absolutely get advice. Listen to the Retire Right podcast. We cover all this crap on the regular. John Pigeon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
John is the host of the This Is Property podcast, and we produce that in the same place that we produce this one.
We do.
Thanks, friends. Bye. One of the biggest questions that we get from people joining our Facebook group, because on the way in, I ask you, do you have any questions about your retirement? I also ask you, where did you hear about us? Now, if you aren't in the Retire Right Facebook group, number one, when you go to join, where did you hear about us? If you can just put down episode 307 or 309 or 313, whatever episode that you heard, because I think in Facebook land now, maybe about 70% of the requests we get to join our various groups are spam and bots. So it will really help us. I heard Glen on the podcast. So all that to say, one of the big things that we get asked is, how much do I need to retire? When can I retire? Then the next question, kind of why we did this podcast, was how to retire. But today we're going to come back and we're going to look at some examples of what retirement might look like based on some examples of assets, and we'll look at the pension cutoff and all that stuff. But this episode, it's for you, the podcast listener. And my guest today, he was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, Nathan Fradley. Nathan, welcome back to Pod Vegas.
Thanks for having me back so quickly.
I know. We're doing it remote. We're not in the lobby of a hotel now. But look, we're going to talk about all this stuff. You put some scenarios together. I will say, if you want to actually have a look at the scenarios, I'll put a link in the comments or the show notes, and I might even share it in the Facebook group to the YouTube channel, because we're recording this on YouTube, and I can share my screen and you'll see all the assumptions. So bear with us if you're listening this audio only. We'll try and explain as much as we can how we can, but there's certainly a one-pager that you can look at when we do this on YouTube. Anyway, let's do a podcast right now. Nathan, I asked you to put some things together, just some case studies, examples about, what does retirement income look like for different amounts, looking at Centrelink, looking at super balances, looking if we're single, if we're a couple, all that stuff. Before we kind of share our screen and get into the nitty-gritty numbers, is there anything you want to kind of say as an opening statement, declare your stake in the ground and all that stuff before we hit go?
These scenarios are super basic. That's what I'm going to put out there. So what we're assuming here is that you own a home, which straight away, it's a pillar of retirement. It makes retiring a lot easier. So if you're a non-homeowner by choice or by not, the numbers are going to be a bit different for you. But I also think, this is a straight down the line money and super. Put it into an account-based pension at 67 and draw down. And there is other strategies. There is other things you can do. There is added complexity we can bring into this. But really, I think, Glenn, when you came to me and said, we want to look at how much do we need to retire. Let's bring it back to some basics, and then you and I can flesh out some of those nuances, I think, and that's the key. And so I relied on those AFSA, I said it right for the first time this time, numbers as well, to give us a bit of an idea of what does the regulator say around this, and what's the outlook look like.
So Nathan, AFSA, we've got all these kind of numbers in this spreadsheet, and I'll put it on the screen in a second. But what is AFSA or ASFA? ASFA.
Yeah. So I did say the regulator before. It's actually just a industry body, the Association of Superannuation Funds in Australia.
Right.
So it's a group of super funds that do some research into this. But these numbers, and I'm sure you've known these for a long time, Glenn, advisors have been using these as a good guidance point, and they've been pretty reasonable for a very long time. So they're a good basis to work from.
Yeah. So do you want me to, if you want to bring up I think actually before I even open the spreadsheet, when you are doing financial advice for people out there in Australia land, like granted, you kind of only do complex, high net worth, crazy stuff, but middle Australia, mum and dad, I've always kind of thought if you own your house, you know, $1,000 or $1,200 a week, most people, that's pretty good, right?
You'd think so, but everyone is different.
Right. There I've done.
And
There I
that's-
went. I've made a big assumption.
Made a
And
big assumption.
when we don't do that here.
What I find really interesting in 14, 15 years of doing this is how people live to their means. They earn an amount of money. They got two people working full time. And it's amazing to see when people do hit that retirement age or they decide to stop, they decided to decrease hours, whatever it is, their living expenses drop dramatically. And life continues on the same. And so I would always, and anyone I work with, you know, try and challenge them on this, on planning for retirement, is live to what your retirement would be now, because then you've got more surplus. And that could be put towards the super balance and increasing the outcome. But it could also just be a really good celebration and holiday when you do retire. You know, it sets you up for success because you can lean into it over time.
But the biggest problem I've seen over my time, and I still see it with my own family and with people that write into the Facebook group, we've spent 45 years or so in accumulation mode, and then overnight the switch is flicked and they're like, okay, now spendy mode. And the psychology of it to say, you want me to start to draw down on my investments, $80,000 a year or whatever that is, 50 grand, 60 grand, there's a psychological shift that needs to happen, right?
Huge shift. It's a scarcity piece. You go from, I will get paid next month, to this is all the money we have forever. And we can do amazing charts and graphs and very pretty pictures and all the rest of it. But the idea at the end of the day is that that's all you've got. And as you approach retirement, we see this at the moment with a little bit of market upset, people start getting a bit jumpier, you know, and they're like, well, what if the day I retire is the day the market crashes? You know, and I've suddenly got 30% less or whatever it might be. That becomes so much more real because you don't want to go back to work. You're done. You're tired. You've been tired for a while. You know, and then double that up with the fact that now you're not at work. So you've got to fill in your time. You've got to spend time together. If you're in a couple, you've got to spend time, you know, doing things to bring you self-esteem and joy and purpose, because a lot of us got that from work. And those things can also cost more money. So you've got this hesitance to go and do new things and try things and spend money because you don't want to run out of money, but also you don't want to run out of money. So 100%. That scarcity is huge.
All right. Well, let's have a look at some numbers. And for